For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tim Foley, and I'm the CEO of the Building and Realty Institute. And I wanted to take a couple of quick moments this morning to talk to you about a new project for the BRI that we're working on with a lot of great community partners called the Welcome Home Westchester Campaign. And I just wanted to lay out what we're hoping to achieve and how this can help BRI members who are struggling here in Westchester County. So as you know, we're a trade association, and what makes us special is that we pull together businesses and organizations from across the spectrum of real estate here in Westchester County. We have home builders and developers and remodelers, but we also have landlords, property owners, co-op and condo boards, and property managing agents. But the connecting tissue that binds all of our members together is housing. Here in Westchester, we've seen time and time again how the way things have always been done impacts what can and cannot get built, and how little things like an inefficient process at a land use board, or like a detail in the zoning code that was made so long ago that no one remembers what it's trying to achieve, or how much the loudest voices, though not necessarily the most representative voices, all contribute to a natural bias towards inaction. And more importantly, we've seen how our inability to adequately address all of the different needs of housing in our communities, affordable housing, senior housing, housing for millennials who want to move back to the region, housing adequate for the essential workers and working families who are the engine that has always made Westchester run, housing for those with disabilities, and yes, even market rate housing in thriving downtown centers, makes all of our other fights and debates around existing apartments, co-ops, rent stabilization, and on that much more contentious. We've also seen how it makes so many other issues that Westchester residents care so deeply about that much harder to solve. Having so many municipalities default into single-family zoning for most of their land use, the least energy efficient and climate friendly type of housing, makes it that much harder to deal with the buildings that make up almost 40% of our carbon emissions. Similarly, the local processes, land use codes, and decision making in some communities reflects assumptions that haven't been re-examined for decades. Sometimes they're simply out of date. Other times, they're continuing to do exactly what they were designed to do: limit the amount of available housing in Westchester and make it harder for future neighbors, particularly people of color, to move in. To be clear, that's probably not the intended goal for many of the hardworking volunteers who make up land use boards or run for their village or town boards in the present day, but that is nevertheless the result the system was designed to achieve decades ago, and it is still achieving it. And so falling back on the same defaults reinforces disparities in housing and education based on race that in turn create inequities that can impact a family's financial health and overall well-being for a lifetime. BRI members like you know we're not the only people to see housing as our collective connecting tissue. There's been an awakening all across the county to realize how much this is the central problem, reinforcing so many of our other problems. The business community sees how our housing situation is holding us back in terms of jobs and the economy. Not-for-profits see the strain a lack of affordable housing has on individuals, not just their clients or the recipients of their services, but their own employees. Climate and environmental activists know that wrapping our arms around carbon means getting smarter about our buildings and our transportation. And our faith leaders know that housing is a human right, and we simply don't have enough of it to meet today's needs. The bottom line, inaction has costs. Outdated processes in need of reform at the municipal level have costs. The way we've always done it has costs. And right now, Westchester residents are paying all of these costs. But we believe we can make a different choice. Just last week, the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury wrote, "Ultimately, the biggest driver of the lack of affordable housing today is a supply constraint that has existed before the COVID pandemic, but has been exacerbated by the pandemic. And he promised the federal government is gearing up to lead an historic shift in U.S. housing policy by focusing on supply constraints and the availability of affordable housing units, including multi-family rental units. And in 2019, Westchester County published a housing needs assessment that showed that every community is falling short. Their report calculated that just to meet present-day demand, we'd need to build 11,703 new units. Despite Westchester's long reputation as a commuter community, the report dropped the stark statistic that today nearly as many people commute into Westchester for work as commute out of it, largely because they can't find affordable workforce housing within Westchester. That's a flashing red light. Another flashing red light is that the fastest growing age cohort are those 85 and older. Now, it's a flashing red light for two reasons. The first of which is that it is not the younger family-aged residents who have traditionally replenished both Westchester's communities and its economy. But it's also a flashing red light because these are seniors who would like to gracefully age in place in their home communities, either within their homes themselves or within some type of housing that would make them a lot more comfortable in the areas that they're familiar with. And they can't find affordable housing choices either. We've seen so many places that develop senior housing and other areas in parts of our communities that are simply being underutilized, and therefore are passing up on these types of projects that contribute a net plus to their neighborhoods, to school and property taxes, and to their home communities. There are places like this throughout Westchester. There are underutilized office parks that are certainly not coming back post-COVID. There is infill in existing downtown areas and underutilized lots near transit hubs. And there are neighborhoods where you would never ever build a tall apartment building, but where duplexes or townhouses or accessory dwelling units would be attractive and very much in character. We need all of it. We know that every community has its share of NIMBYs, those who say, "Not in my backyard." In some communities, we even kick it up a notch. We don't just have NIMBYs, we have caves, citizens against virtually everything. And they dedicate a lot of time to clogging up the public process to protect a status quo that is simply bananas, or build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. But we know we also have caring, hardworking people trying to ensure that as we exit this horrible pandemic year, we're laying an economic growth foundation to make our communities even better. We have residents who are welcoming to new neighbors they haven't had the chance to meet yet, who care about jobs, who care about sustainable property taxes, who care about our climate future, and who care about ending disparities in housing to achieve racial justice. We're confident that every community has its own residents who look upon the challenge of meeting our housing needs not with a "not here, no way, no how," but with a welcome home. So this is truly an all-hands-on-deck moment for everyone with an interest in housing in our county. We believe that a multi-stakeholder campaign, like the Welcome Home Westchester Campaign, can make the invisible visible with respect to the everyday costs and barriers to providing the housing we need. And in doing so, can encourage communities to make different, better choices to secure a Westchester that is welcoming to all who wish to live and work here. And that's why we started the campaign, and that's why we're working with so many great partners, and that's what we've set out to do. So I would encourage you to look for yourself. Go to www.welcomehomewestchester.org. You can sign up for updates, you can follow us on social media, and you can find ways that you can plug into our efforts within your own home community. We're just getting started, but there's a conversation that we need to have about the future of housing in Westchester, and it's one that I know many of you are ready to play an important role in as well. So thanks for listening.